Se is one of the most commonly used pronouns in Spanish, and it has 4 uses. Today we'll talk about those uses. They include first, el se reflexivo, el se recíproco, el se como parte del verbo sin motivo, and lastly, el se impersonal. Let's look at this first use of se, el se reflexivo. This refers to actions that we do to ourselves. So in these constructions, the subject not only performs the action, the subject also receives the action. Let's look at a couple of examples. The first one, el padre se baña. The father bathes himself. We do need the se there to denote that it's an action he's doing to himself. But the second one here, el padre baña al hijo. The father bathes the child. He's no longer bathing himself, therefore the se reflexivo is not needed in this construction. What if I were to say, la madre se peina? The mother combs or brushes her hair. It's an action she's doing to herself. Therefore, I use the se. But if I say, la madre peina al hijo, the mother combs the child's hair, notice there I did not use the reflexive se. So that covers the first use. The second use of se is called el se recíproco. And this refers to actions that occur amongst 2 or more people. They're reciprocal actions that people do to one another. Let's look at some examples. The first one, los amigos se saludan. The friends greet one another. How might this look like? Jake, amigo.
Hola.
¿Cómo estás? ¿Qué tal?
Muy bien, ¿y tú, Emily?
Muy bien, pues es un placer verte.
Igualmente.
Okay, so Jake and I have just greeted one another. The second example, los amigos se abrazan. The friends hug one another. How might this look like? Hola, tanto
Emily.
tiempo.
¿Qué
¿Cómo
tal?
has estado?
Bien, ¿y tú?
Muy bien, muchas gracias, Jake.
Por nada.
So Jake and I have hugged one another. This shows you reciprocal actions. That covers the second use of se. This third use of se is called el se como parte del verbo sin motivo. And it tends to be the trickiest use of se for non-native speakers. It's tricky in the sense that it doesn't follow the other rules of se. These verbs, for example, are not reflexive, they're not reciprocal, and they're not impersonal. Yet, Spanish grammar dictates that they still need the pronoun se. I'd encourage you to look on this page in Acceso because you'll see a list of the most common verbs that follow this rule. On these 2 examples, I'm going to pull from your vocab list from this unit. We'll use the 2 phrases tratarse de, to be about, and darse cuenta de, to realize. I want to point out here that the se in both sentences is not the subject, so do not mistake it with the subject. However, it agrees with the subject. Let's look at the first one. Harry Potter se trata de un niño aventurero. Harry Potter is about an adventurous child or boy. Okay? If I were to look up in the dictionary to be about, I would literally see tratarse de. There is no such thing in Spanish as tratar de when talking about to be about something. Tratar de has a different meaning. Let's look at the second one. La mujer se da cuenta de su error. The woman realizes her error. Now, I want to also point out that it doesn't always have to be this conjugation of se. Let's say, for example, let's change it to yo. I realize my mistake. Yo me doy cuenta de mi error. Notice I used yo me. I didn't say se. Or for example, tú te das cuenta de tu error. So do not fall into the habit of always using se. The fourth and final use of se is probably the most commonly used one, and it's referred to as the se impersonal. In these constructions, we do not say or reveal who or what is doing the action. We're keeping the sentences impersonal or general. We're removing the agent. Let's look at a couple of examples. For the first one, si se practica mucho el español, se mejora. If one practices Spanish often, one will improve. So as you can see, in English, we oftentimes refer to this with the use of one, or we can also say you in English, but it's a you general. For example, if you practice Spanish a lot, you will improve. I'm not saying you specifically, I'm saying you in general. Let's look at the second one. Se dice que el negocio va mejor. They say that the business is going well or better. I'm saying here word on the street is that it's going well, or they. I'm not saying they as in that group of people specifically right there. No, I'm saying they in general. I'm keeping it impersonal. This form is sometimes also referred to as enacting the passive voice. An example of this would be, for example, se mandan emails todos los días. Emails are sent every day. I don't care who's sending the emails. All I care about is that emails are sent. Or for example, one may be more appropriate for our classrooms. Aquí se habla español. Here, Spanish is spoken. I'm talking about a you in general. So again, this is the final form of say, el se impersonal. I encourage you now to test your knowledge with the gray box below. Buena suerte.